What would you do if you went back to destroy your past, only to find someone had been keeping it alive? Before we start this amazing story, please hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss our stories. Also, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We absolutely love hearing from you. Thomas Wellington sat in the back of his black Mercedes, watching the trees pass by outside the window. He was 72 years old, and his suit cost more than most people owned in a month. His watch was gold. His shoes were polished until they shined like mirrors. Everything about him screamed success and money. But right now, he felt empty. The car turned onto a dirt road that hadn't been used in years. Branches scratched against the windows. Weeds grew tall on both sides. The driver slowed down, careful not to damage the expensive car. "Are you sure this is the right place, sir?" the driver asked, looking worried. Thomas nodded. "Keep going." He knew this road. He had walked it 1,000 times as a boy. Back then, his shoes had holes in them. Back then, his stomach was often empty. Back then, this road led home. But that was 50 years ago. The car came around a bend, and there it was. The old house stood like a ghost from another life. The paint had peeled away. The roof sagged in the middle. Windows were broken. The porch steps looked ready to collapse. Thomas felt his chest tighten. He hadn't been here since his mother's funeral. That was 23 years ago. He had left right after they buried her and never looked back. "Wait here," Thomas told his driver. He stepped out of the car, his expensive shoes crunching on the gravel. The manila folder in his hand contained all the papers he needed. Demolition permits, property surveys, plans to tear this house down and build 5 new homes to sell. It was good business. Smart business. That's what he told himself. But as he walked closer, something caught his eye. Near the foundation of the house, where the old porch met the ground, there were flowers. Red ones, yellow ones, pink ones. They were fresh and healthy, glowing bright against the gray, rotting wood. Thomas stopped walking. His heart started beating faster. Roses. His mother's roses. But that was impossible. Nobody had lived here in over 2 decades. Nobody had taken care of this place. These flowers should be dead. Everything here should be dead. He heard a sound. A scraping sound, like metal on dirt. Thomas walked around the side of the house, and that's when he saw them. 3 children. The oldest looked about 12. He was thin, with dark skin and eyes that seemed too serious for his age. He was digging carefully around a rose bush with a small shovel. Next to him, a boy who looked about 9 was filling a watering can from a barrel that collected rainwater. The youngest was a girl, maybe 6 or 7, and she was gently picking dead leaves off the flowers and putting them in a basket. They all froze when they saw Thomas. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then the oldest boy stood up slowly. He stepped in front of the other 2, protecting them with his body. "This is private property," the boy said. His voice shook a little, but he lifted his chin high. "You need to leave." Thomas almost laughed. This child was telling him to leave his own property. "I'm Thomas Wellington," he said. "I own this house. I own this land. Who are you, and what are you doing here?" The boy's face went pale, but he didn't back down. "My name is Isaiah," he said. "This is my brother Andre and my sister Maya. We live here." "You live here?" Thomas looked at the broken windows, the sagging roof. "Where are your parents?" Isaiah's jaw tightened. The little girl, Maya, grabbed his hand. "Our mama died," Maya said in a small voice. 8 months ago." Thomas felt something twist in his chest. "And your father?" "Never knew him," Isaiah said flatly. "It was just Mama, and then it was just us." "So you're living in an abandoned house," Thomas said. "Do you understand that's illegal? Does anyone know you're here? Social services? The police?" Isaiah's hand tightened around the shovel. "If you call them, they'll split us up. They'll send us to different homes. I won't let that happen. We stay together." Thomas looked at the 3 children standing in front of him. They were dirty. Their clothes were old and didn't fit right. But they stood together like a wall, protecting each other. His eyes moved to the flowers again, to the carefully tended garden, to the basket of weeds and dead leaves. Why are you taking care of these roses? He asked quietly. Isaiah glanced at the flowers, then back at Thomas. Because homes should have flowers. That's what Mama always said. She said flowers make a place feel like people care about it. Thomas felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Those were his mother's exact words. The same words she had said to him when he was a boy, when they were poor and struggling, when she spent her few extra pennies on flower seeds instead of food. A home should be beautiful, Thomas, she used to say, no matter how little we have. He had forgotten that. He had forgotten so much. Thomas looked down at the manila folder in his hands. Inside were the demolition papers, his plans to erase this place, to turn it into profit. But standing here, looking at 3 orphaned children who had turned his mother's abandoned house into their sanctuary, who had kept her roses alive when he had let them die, Thomas Wellington realized something. He had come here to destroy the past. Instead, the past was about to save him. Thomas stood there, staring at the 3 children. His mind was racing. The demolition papers felt heavy in his hands, like they weighed 100 pounds. How long have you been living here? He asked. Isaiah shifted his feet. Since 2 weeks after Mama died. They were going to put us in the system. I heard the social worker on the phone. She said they didn't have a place that could take all 3 of us together. So we ran. You've been hiding here for 8 months. Thomas couldn't believe it. How have you survived? Where do you get food? Andre, the middle child, spoke up for the first time. I collect bottles and cans. Sometimes I find $5 worth in a day. Isaiah does odd jobs. He mows lawns and pulls weeds for people in town. He tells them he's saving for a bike, so they don't ask too many questions. And I help, Maya added proudly. I pick the flowers that are ready, and Isaiah sells them at the farmer's market on Saturdays. People love them. They say they're the most beautiful roses they've ever seen. Thomas felt his throat tighten. His mother had won prizes for her roses back when she was alive. She had a gift for growing things. And somehow, these children had kept that gift alive. What about school? Thomas asked. We have books, Isaiah said defensively. Mama taught me to read good. I teach Andre and Maya every morning. We do math too. We're not stupid just because we don't go to a building. I didn't say you were stupid, Thomas said softly. But children need more than just books and survival. You need stability, safety, a real home. Isaiah's eyes flashed with anger. This is a real home. We fixed the roof where it was leaking. We cleaned out 3 rooms so they are safe to sleep in. We made it work. This is our home now. It's my home, Thomas said, but the words felt wrong in his mouth. You left it. Isaiah shouted, and tears suddenly filled his eyes. You left it to rot. When we got here, the roses were almost dead. The garden was full of weeds taller than Maya. Nobody had cared about this place in years. But we did. We brought it back to life. We made it matter again. Thomas felt like the boy had slapped him, because Isaiah was right. Completely right. He had abandoned this place. After his mother died, he had paid the property taxes every year, but he never visited, never checked on it, never honored her memory by keeping up the things she loved most. He had been too angry, too hurt, too proud. Thomas sat down on an old wooden crate near the garden. His expensive suit would get dirty, but he didn't care anymore. My father left when I was 10, Thomas said quietly. He told my mother that being poor was suffocating him. He said he was going to make something of himself, get rich, and come back for us. He never came back. The children were quiet, listening. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. She cleaned houses, took in laundry, and waited tables at night. But no matter how tired she was, she always made time for her garden. She said growing beautiful things reminded her that life wasn't just about surviving. It was about living. Thomas looked at the roses, their petals bright in the afternoon sun. When I grew up, I promised myself I would be nothing like my father. I worked hard. I built a business. I made millions. But somewhere along the way, I became exactly like him. I cared more about money than people, more about success than love. When my mother got sick, I sent her the best doctors money could buy, but I rarely visited. I was always too busy making my next deal. His voice cracked. She died in this house, alone, and I couldn't face what I'd become. So I stayed away. For 23 years, I stayed away. Maya walked over to Thomas. She was so small, her head barely reached his knee. She put her tiny hand on his arm. "It's okay to be sad," she said. "Mama said being sad means you love somebody. And loving people is never wrong." Thomas felt tears running down his face. When was the last time he had cried? When was the last time he had let himself feel anything real? "Why did you come back now?" Isaiah asked, his voice softer than before. Thomas held up the manila folder. "To tear it down, to build new houses and sell them, to finally get rid of this place and everything it reminds me of." Isaiah's face went white. Andre grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her close. "But I can't do that now," Thomas said quickly. "Not after seeing what you've done here. Not after seeing how you've cared for something I threw away." He stood up and looked at the three children. Really looked at them. They were dirty and thin, but their eyes were bright. They were scared and alone, but they hadn't given up. They had found an abandoned house and turned it into a home. They had found a dying garden and brought it back to life. They had done what he should have done years ago. "I need to make a phone call," Thomas said. He walked back to his car and pulled out his cell phone. The children watched him nervously, whispering to each other. Thomas dialed his lawyer first. "Cancel the demolition permits. All of them. I'm not tearing down the property." Then he called his assistant. "I need the name of the best family lawyer in the state. And I need you to contact Child Services. Tell them I'm filing for emergency guardianship of 3 minors." Isaiah's eyes went wide. "What are you doing?" Thomas put his phone away and walked back to them. "I'm doing what my mother would have wanted. What she tried to teach me all those years ago. A home should be beautiful. A home should be cared for. And a home should be filled with family." He knelt down so he was at eye level with the children. "I can't bring my mother back. I can't fix the mistakes I made. But maybe I can honor her memory by doing what's right now. If you'll let me, I want to restore this house. Make it safe and warm. And I want you 3 to live in it. Not as squatters or trespassers, but as family." "Why would you do that?" Isaiah asked suspiciously. "You don't even know us." "Because you loved something I stopped loving," Thomas said. "Because you saw value where I saw trash. Because you cared for my mother's roses when I let them die. And because I think maybe you can teach an old man what home really means." Maya started crying. Andre was trying not to cry but failing. Isaiah stood very still, like he was afraid if he moved, the dream would shatter. "We stay together." Isaiah whispered, "All 3 of us. All 3 of you," Thomas promised. "I'll make sure of it." For the first time in 50 years, Thomas Wellington felt like he was finally coming home. The next few weeks moved like a whirlwind. Thomas didn't do anything halfway. Once he made up his mind, he put all his energy and resources into making it happen. The first challenge was the legal system. Child Services didn't just hand over 3 children to a stranger, even a rich one. There were interviews, background checks, and home visits. Thomas had to prove he was serious. He had to show he understood what he was taking on. Isaiah, Andre, and Maya were nervous during every meeting. They sat close together on folding chairs in cold office rooms, answering questions from social workers who looked tired and suspicious. "Why do you want to live with Mr. Wellington?" one social worker asked Isaiah. Isaiah looked at Thomas, then back at the woman. "Because he sees us, not like broken things that need fixing, but like people who matter." The social worker wrote something in her notebook. Thomas moved into a hotel near the property so he could be close while the work began. He hired contractors, architects, and designers, but he gave them strict instructions. "I want you to save everything you can," he told them. "The original wood floors, the stone fireplace, the windows that still work. This house is history, and I want to keep it." The crew thought he was crazy at first. It would be cheaper and easier to tear everything down and start fresh. But Thomas didn't care about cheaper or easier. Every day after school meetings and legal appointments, Thomas would bring the children to the property to see the progress. They watched as workers replaced a broken roof, fix a foundation, and restored the porch. They saw new plumbing get installed and insulation added to the walls. But the garden remained untouched. That was the children's domain. "We'll handle the roses," Isaiah told contractors firmly. "Nobody touches the roses but us." One afternoon, while the children were watering the garden, Thomas went exploring in the attic. The workers had cleared out most of the junk, but they'd left a few boxes that looked personal. Thomas opened one and found old photo albums. Pictures of himself as a boy, gap-toothed and grinning. Pictures of his mother, young and beautiful, holding him in her arms. Pictures of the garden in full bloom, roses everywhere, his mother kneeling among them with dirt on her hands and joy on her face. At the bottom of the box was a wooden case. Thomas opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter, his mother's handwriting. The date showed she'd written it 3 days before she died. "My dearest Thomas," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you finally come home. I always knew you would, even if it took years. You're like your father in many ways, stubborn, proud, ambitious. But you're also like me. You have a good heart, even when you try to hide it. I want you to know that I was always proud of you. Every success, every achievement, every dollar you earned, I celebrated it all. But I also want you to know that those things were never what made me proud. What made me proud was the boy who carried groceries for old Mrs. Chen when her hip was bad. The boy who shared his lunch with classmates who had none. The boy who watered my roses without being asked, just because he knew it would make me happy. That's the Thomas the First raised. That's the Thomas the First love. Don't forget him in your search for more. Don't lose your roots while reaching for the sky. This house, this garden, these roses, they're not just wood and dirt and petals. They are proof that beauty can grow anywhere if someone cares enough to tend it. Remember that, my son, and remember that you are loved always and forever. Your mother." Thomas sat on the dusty attic floor and cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. All these years, he thought she'd been disappointed in him. All these years, he'd carried guilt and shame. But she'd been proud. She'd loved him. She'd understood. He folded the letter carefully and put it in his jacket pocket, right over his heart. That evening, he showed the letter to Isaiah, Andre, and Maya. They sat together on the newly repaired porch steps as the sun went down. "Your mama sounds like our mama," Maya said softly. "She told us we were loved too, every single day." "I think," Thomas said slowly, "that's the most important thing a parent can do. Make sure that children know they're loved. And I want you 3 to know something. I'm going to try my best to be a good guardian to you. I'm going to make mistakes because I've never been a father before. But I promise you this, you will always know you're loved. You will always know you matter. And you will always have a home." 6 months later, the guardianship was finalized. Judge Martinez signed the papers in her courtroom while Thomas, Isaiah, Andre, and Maya stood together. "This is highly unusual," the judge said, but she was smiling. "But sometimes the unusual thing is the right thing. Mr. Wellington, these children are now your legal responsibility." "No, Your Honor," Thomas said, looking at the 3 young faces beside him. "They are my family." The house was finished by then. The sagging porch was solid and painted white. The roof was new and strong. Inside, the floors gleamed, the fireplace worked, and each child had their own bedroom with new furniture and warm blankets. But the best part was the garden. Under the children's care, it had exploded with life. Roses of every color bloomed in abundance. Thomas had added a bench where they could sit together in the evenings. He'd installed soft lights that made the garden glow like magic at night. Thomas set up college funds for all 3 children. He reduced his work hours and started coming home for dinner every night. He helped with homework, learned to braid Maya's hair, taught Andre to ride a bike, and listened when Isaiah wanted to talk about his dreams of becoming a doctor. On the first anniversary of the day they met, Thomas and the children planted a new rose bush together. It was white, symbolizing new beginnings. "What should we name it?" Maya asked. "How about hope?" Andre suggested. "Or family?" Isaiah offered. Thomas smiled. "How about home? Because that's what you 3 gave back to me." They planted the rose bush together, their hands in the date, working as one. That night, Thomas stood at his bedroom window, looking down at the garden. The roses swayed in the evening breeze, and he could almost see his mother kneeling among them, smiling up at him with pride. He'd spent 50 years chasing wealth, thinking money would fill the empty places inside him. But 3 orphaned children and a garden of roses had taught him the truth. Home wasn't about how much money you had. It wasn't about impressive buildings or business deals. Home was about the people you loved and who loved you back. Home was about caring for something bigger than yourself. Home was about roots that went deep and flowers that bloomed bright. Thomas Wellington had gone back to tear down his past. Instead, he'd found his future. And it was more beautiful than anything money could buy. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss stories that remind us what really matters in life. And don't forget to comment below and tell us, would you choose a home worth keeping over status worth showing off? We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we read every single comment. Thank you for being part of our community. And remember, it's never too late to come home to what truly matters.